Welcome everyone to the Idea Cafe, brought to you by the Idea Committee. IDEA is short for Inclusion, Diversity, Equity, and Accessibility. You might be familiar with the cafe from previous APGA conferences, or perhaps this is your first time. The cafe has been a way for us to create conversations around IDEA principles and inspire greater engagement to make change happen from the inside out. But we want to keep these conversations going all year round and involve more of you. So we will be bringing you more topics and discussions that will hopefully facilitate greater awareness and promote action. We also want to make sure you are aware of and have access to all the resources we have compiled. And we want to create ways for you to engage with the committee so that we can do more to support you. Today, we thought we would start with a Meet the Committee edition to share who we are, what fuels our passion and commitment, and the change each of us wants to see in public gardens. I couldn't be more excited and really proud to be a part of this committee, and I'm really thrilled for you to meet them. Be sure to stay tuned to the end of today's cafe, where we will share links to the IDEA Committee webpage, resources, and ways for you to connect with us and be an active part of the work that we do. So since I'm here, I'll go first. Hi, my name is Plummer. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I'm one of the IDEA Committee co-chairs and a recent graduate of the Longwood Fellows Program. I'm really passionate about the work of this committee because I truly believe public gardens play an essential role in reminding people of their connection to plants and nature. And I believe humanity's future depends on ensuring that that connection isn't lost. But we can't just tell part of the story of those connections or only from a narrow, one-sided perspective, and then only share it with a privileged few. We can and must do better to understand the many relationships people have with plants in the past and the present, so that all feel welcome and seen in our gardens, and so that gardens continue to be stewards of our ever-evolving relationship with plants. We cannot do this if there is a lack of representation of these diverse relationships and people. So as gardens embrace the work of IDEA, I want to see more gardens take action and connect with those they serve the least in their communities, and elevate their voices and representation, whether it's in our programs, education, interpretation, collections, but also volunteers, staff, leadership, and our boards. I'm deeply inspired by all the people and organizations out there who are taking the steps to make change happen in this messy world we live in. I say, keep going and keep challenging yourselves to do more.
Hey there, my name is Adriana Quiñones, she, her, and hers, and I'm the Executive Director of Peace River Botanical and Sculpture Garden in Punta Gorda, Florida. I'm on the association's board, and I'm also the co-chair of this year's IDEA Committee, along with Plummer. Gardens should be indispensable for everyone in a community, regardless of their race, gender, gender expression, socioeconomic situation, or abilities. And that's why I'm so passionate about IDEA principles being implemented in public gardens. As gardens continue to adopt these principles, I hope we'll see not only a kinder and more compassionate industry, but public gardens will become the standard which other industries and organizations can look towards for inspiration and guidance on how to do this right. We have an amazing and committed committee, and I hope this video will give you a glimpse of the people working on the association's behalf to make sure we all keep moving forward with the work. This committee inspires me to keep working toward our common goal of making gardens inclusive, diverse, equitable, and accessible for all. I hope you'll join with us.
Hello, I'm Jain, she, her, hers. I am the Creative and Marketing Manager with Tower Hill Botanic Garden in Boylston, Massachusetts. I am passionate about IDEA in public gardens because I believe and care about creating and fostering a sense of belonging in every individual who visits. Our gardens are beautiful spaces because they're so biodiverse. So I want our gardens to be places that celebrate differences amongst people, not just plants. As public gardens embrace the IDEA principles, I want them to be spaces where everyone feels they belong. I want everyone who visits to enjoy and reap the benefits these green spaces provide, to feel inspired and to breathe in the air of acceptance. I am inspired by many people around me, my family and friends. I have been blessed to know people from different backgrounds, and I feel their perspectives that I value so much has helped me grow as a person. I firmly believe that diversity and inclusivity are essential for personal growth as well as community growth. One inspirational moment that I can remember is from a couple of years back. I saw a group of racially and ethnically diverse kids on a field trip at Tower Hill. They looked so joyous in each other's company, and their faces were blissful. It's the moments like those that inspire me.
Hi, my name is Sable. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm the marketing manager for the Growing Solutions Group at Gibraltar Industries, comprised of Rao Brothers Inc. and Nexus Greenhouse Systems, as well as Thermo Energy. I'm passionate for the idea in public gardens because I believe we are all stewards of this earth, and we should not only take care of it, but also one another. Public gardens provide us a common space to learn and grow. I am most excited to see advocacy among organizations and individuals grow as gardens embrace IDEA. I am so inspired by the people within this community, and my goal is to listen and learn so that I can continue to be an advocate and push IDEA forward, not only through my work, but in all areas of my life.
I am Tim Johnson. I'm the director of the Botanic Garden at Smith College. I use he, him, his pronouns. I'm passionate for IDEA in public gardens because of the promise it holds for creating a better, more interesting world and a more interesting gardening world in particular. I'm inspired by many of my colleagues in gardens who are pushing the envelope about what botanic gardens do or don't do, exploring new and interesting themes about inclusion, equity, and access, and really working to rewrite historic narratives about who does and doesn't belong in botanic gardens. The change that I hope for botanic gardens is that we'll find even more diverse audiences being comfortable in our spaces, and that they'll be able to change us as much as we're able to change and influence them.
Hi, I'm Trey Ramsey, and I go by they, them pronouns. I'm a master's student in Cornell University's Public Garden Leadership Program in partnership with Cornell Botanic Gardens. I am passionate for IDEA in public gardens because I have long had an interest in horticulture and in social justice. I recognize that public gardens not only have the opportunity, but the mandate to address oppression and injustice in order to reach those in public who are too often excluded. By recognizing and catering to human diversity, gardens can reach a broader audience and draw in new ideas and skills to strengthen their missions. As gardens embrace IDEA principles, I hope to see gardens center the communities that face the most challenges and danger, paving the road for true cultural shift and acceptance. For example, when looking toward transgender justice, it is not enough just to address transphobia, but to recognize that trans women of color face some of the highest rates of violence and discrimination. We need to understand how racism, sexism, and transphobia together create unique dangers, and by addressing those dangers, we start to get to the root of oppression rather than addressing some of the symptoms. In my own experience, I am inspired by Cornell Botanic Gardens, recognizing the need to build connections with the campus LGBTQ community and working with me and others from that community to create dialogue and programming. Earlier this year, everyone was quickly on board when I proposed programming bringing the LGBTQ community and the Botanic Gardens together. They just needed the push to do so. I hope that other gardens can form connections with their local communities to increase diversity and to broaden their audiences and programming.
Hi there, I'm Charles Hunter. I'm with the Niagara Parks Commission in Niagara Falls, Canada. I'm on the board of directors for the APGA. And since becoming a board member, I've had a great opportunity to be introduced to the IDEA committee. And when I was first asked, I wasn't quite sure exactly what that meant to me. And I've come from a life where I didn't realize how much privilege I've had in it and how much opportunity that's been provided to me. And through not only the nurturing of my mentors and my friends, as well as the industry of public gardening, I found that there were certain language skills that I still do not have, and perhaps even perceptions. And one of the great things about public gardening is its nurturing aspect. Plants and the people that belong to these spaces have really demonstrated to me how to be. One of the greatest things that we can do for the principles of IDEA and for the American Public Garden Association is just demonstrate how to properly listen. We don't always have the story, even though we think we do, and our best way to overcome some of those perhaps preconceptions or preconceived ideas is really to listen.
Hi, I'm Ben Futa, the curator of horticulture with the Potawatomi Zoo in South Bend, Indiana. I am passionate for IDEA and public gardens because I'm excited for this idea that public gardens can be more than the sum of their plants, that gardens can be centers of their community. Although we may not have been designed that way, we certainly can function that way. And so I'm really inspired by all of the things I'm seeing happening throughout public gardens right now, particularly my, I guess I can say alma mater, my recent garden at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, the Allen Centennial Garden. In the last couple of years, we've done a lot of really exciting work to diversify our intern program, to host inclusive programming like drag queens and daylilies. And again, I'm seeing all of this wonderful work happening throughout gardens right now. And so it's just an exciting time for me to be a part of all of this.
Hi, my name is Maura Nelson. I'm the Accessibility Coordinator at the United States Botanic Garden in Washington, D.C. I'm passionate about IDEA at public gardens because everyone that visits us should feel welcomed, engaged, and included, no matter the ability. We don't know what we don't know, so as public gardens embrace IDEA, my hope is that we build comfort and confidence in asking the questions and reaching out to organizations and individuals that advocate for different audiences. I'm inspired constantly by the families and individuals that participate in our programs to hear feedback that their visit with us or their experience with us was a safe space and that they were able to participate as a family unit, and that then they build comfort and confidence in visiting us during normal business hours. I'm also inspired by my young children at 7 and 4 who have fully embraced unconditionally our cousin, my nephew, born with Down syndrome, and made him a part of their lives without question. My hope is that their acceptance travels with them through life and that we can all learn a lesson from them.
Hello, I am Kevina Devereaux. I am the Manager of Workforce Development and Diversity at Desert Botanical Garden in Phoenix, Arizona. I am passionate about IDEA within gardens because gardens represent and reflect beautiful and diverse plants. It is now time for gardens to embrace that same diversity among our workforce and our visitor base. While also embracing diversity, we need to make sure we create an environment that is inclusive, equitable, and accessible at the same time. As gardens embrace IDEA, I hope we begin to focus on cultural additions instead of focusing on cultural fits, because it is time to bring diverse voices to the table that reflect the community we serve. I'm inspired by Desert Botanical Garden winning the Inclusive Workplace Award here in Arizona. We are so new on our journey, and we have worked so hard to ensure that we are creating positive change within our organizations, and I hope other gardens incorporate that positive change as well. Thank you.
Hello, hi. I'm Dr. Todd Beasley with the University of South Carolina. I'm passionate for IDEA and public gardens as it represents responsible action to drive change within our profession. Connecting new demographics and cultures within cultures to the role of plants in society is the change that I really hope to see as gardens embrace IDEA. I'm inspired by all gardens that use IDEA as a catalyst to become places of inspiration in new, meaningful, and culturally relevant ways.
Hi, everybody. My name is Yvonne Garcia Bardwell, and the pronouns I like to use are she, her, hers, and ella. I am the Community Relations Manager with Denver Botanic Gardens, and I have been with the Gardens for almost 10 years. I am very passionate for IDEA in public gardens because as a third generation Latina, I am connected to plants and I see the power that plants have in my community and with me. And I just think that it's very important that gardens play the role of being the unifier and removing barriers and connecting us all and truly being a garden for all people. So that's really what I am very passionate about, being a Latina. The change that I hope to see gardens embrace as they embrace IDEA are dialogue and intentions turning into action. I think we can do a lot of talking when it comes to IDEA, and we have really great intentions, but I think we don't ever turn that into something that these actions that can become fruitful, as they say. So I really hope that IDEA can really help the dialogue and intentions turn into something greater. What I'm really inspired by is the work that we have done as a garden, especially when I started 9.5 years ago. I remember starting and thinking to myself, where are all the Latinos? Where is the bilingual signage? We have so many Latinos that live in Denver, and I was just so confused as to why there was this disconnect. And I think I'm very proud of how far we've come. We have bilingual signage, we have interpretive signage that speaks to the Latino community, but we also have programs that speak to the Latino community. One of them is our Dia de los Muertos festival that is just completing its 10th year. And it started off as something very small with only 1,300 people coming the first year. And now in year 8, year 9, we've had 12,000 people. So that's just kind of a true testament of how IDEA really works. And when you put the effort and time into it, it just can show how beautiful it is to connect with, how communities come together to connect because they're looking for that, and how gardens can play a very vital role in that connection. So I'm really happy to be a part of this committee. I'm happy to learn from this committee, from my other peers, and I'm also excited to learn from each and every one of you. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Casey Sclar. I'm the Executive Director of the American Public Gardens Association. For about 5 years, beginning in the latter stages of 2015, this association has gone on an inclusion, diversity, equity, and accessibility journey. It's been a deeply personal journey for me and represents some of my proudest moments with the organization and with our sector as we watch it grow. In about 2016, our board made a commitment to pursuing inclusion and diversity principles, and we came up with a series of steps that we needed to, with the idea that we didn't want to just check a box on diversity and inclusion issues. We wanted to go through a very thoughtful and solid journey that would help us leave a legacy for not only ourselves as an association, but for all of our members to be able to emulate. Some of this early work culminated in the initial formation of an inclusion and diversity committee, but then also as time went on, we decided to add equity and accessibility because these are profound principles that impact all of our lives in public gardens today. And to do all this with joy as a way of forming what we now call IDEA principles: inclusion, diversity, equity, and accessibility. So one of the first pieces of work that IDEA committee did was to come up with a diversity and inclusion policy statement for our organization. And we'll share it here now, and I'd like to read it for you. It says, the American Public Gardens Association is committed to creating an equitable, diverse, and inclusive culture where the contributions of all community members are valued, respected, and appreciated. The association also seeks to encourage and support its members in creating the same culture within their own institutions. Just as the gardens and landscapes we present are biologically diverse and engaging, we seek to consistently re-examine our professional values, modify our existing practices, and remove barriers to being diverse and inclusive. This idea committee exists to promote several different things, all of which are designed so that anyone within our organization or even externally can access these principles and also create ideals, with L being the last letter in idea. And to try to lead wherever they are, to try to further that conversation along wherever they are. We yearly seek nominations for this idea committee, and we encourage you not only to apply for this opportunity to either self-nominate or have someone nominate you. Both methods are viewed equally, or to volunteer for another aspect of association service. And now it's my pleasure to have members of our American Public Gardens Association team share with you some of the many resources that we've developed both as a staff and as a committee, all for your use. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Marisol Mata, Program Manager at the Association. I am in charge of our youth education program, Plant Heroes. The mission of Plant Heroes is to connect kids to trees and forest ecosystems where they live, study, and play, regardless of their cultural, religious, or socioeconomic background. We hope to spark their curiosity in science and empower them to become agents of positive environmental change. Our program provides hands-on, nature-based learning materials for educators to engage children in topics of forest health, ecology, and plant conservation. We also spotlight the amazing work our public gardens do in protecting the plants and ecosystems we all depend on through our website content and our printed materials. All our materials are free to download, but members of our association can also get free copies delivered to their organization without any cost. This year, we set out to translate all existing materials to Spanish and simplified Chinese, a practice we will continue with future materials. We are also working on adapting them for virtual learning and incorporating in them elements of culturally responsive teaching. We hope to continue incorporating idea principles in all aspects of our work with Plant Heroes, and participation from our member communities is crucial for this. If you're interested in getting involved with Plant Heroes, please reach out to us or visit plantheroes.org for more information.
Hello, I'm Tommy Rosenblut, Program Coordinator at the Association. The Public Garden Sustainability Index provides goals, strategies, resources, and a network of peer support to help your garden achieve sustainability outcomes. Peer-reviewed living documents outline best practices that apply to all public gardens, regardless of size, operating budget, or their current level of performance. When your garden achieves best practice standards on an attribute, a recognition of excellence is attained. 3 of these attributes focus on IDEA principles. The Sustainability Index attribute on employee development, diversity, and inclusion was developed by staff and IDEA committee members and includes an extensive workbook, resources, and frameworks for internal analysis. A focus on recruitment and mentorship of underserved individuals is prioritized. Find useful resources for increasing your application of IDEA principles here. Engaging with broad and diverse community members, ensuring equitable, inclusive, and accessible offerings may be found in the social engagement, outreach, and education attribute. Enhance capacity for participatory and inclusive sustainable community development, outreach projects, and direct response to identified community needs with the Sustainable Community Development attribute. I am very happy to share library and media center resources with members and help gardens navigate the use of the Public Gardens Sustainability Index.
Hello, I'm Sarah Beck, Director of Programs and Education for the Association, and Staff Liaison to the IDEA Committee. The IDEA Committee, Association staff, and many active members like you have contributed to the resources that can be found in the Library and Media Center. Searches may be done using category types, such as diversity and inclusion, or you can find specific items, such as the last IDEA Cafe recording, by using a keyword search. Our board, IDEA Committee, staff, and stakeholders collaboratively identified organizational goals that have been embedded within our 2020 to 2025 strategic plan. Each area of our strategic plan's goals was designed with an IDEA lens. We are actively working to increase access to professional development opportunities for the broadest possible member audience and provide opportunities for diverse members to engage, serve, and build professional relationships. There are new opportunities for members to engage in our communities area. Log in to the communities page and find the Inclusion, Diversity, Equity, and Accessibility Discussion Forum. This discussion forum is a place for all association members to share resources, receive guidance and support, and build professional networks with a shared goal of increasing equitable access, representation, and benefit sharing at our gardens and in our communities. All professional community chairs receive IDEA training and resources for helping their communities to build inclusive and accessible presentations. If you're logged into the communities page, find tips on preparing and delivering accessible and inclusive presentations in the Professional Development Manual for communities and in our annual conference web pages.
Hi everybody, I'm Brian Vogt. I'm with Denver Botanic Gardens, where we've been on a journey of being more open, more relevant, more welcoming to diverse audiences for over 10 years now. In fact, we started an IDEA committee with our board about 11 years ago, and it's made all the difference in the world. And now you can see throughout the entire community of public gardens, people taking seriously, finally, this whole effort to make sure that we create public gardens for all people, where everyone can benefit from the services we provide, the atmosphere that we create, but even more importantly, that we can learn from their experiences and their expectations how we should develop programming and approaches in the future. This is such an exciting time because with all of the learning that is being brought to us by the IDEA committee and the resources that are being developed, perspectives are changing. We're beginning to see our histories differently. We're having very deep, interesting conversations about anti-colonialism and identity and how public gardens play a role in communicating the value of diversity, not only biodiversity and plant diversity, but human diversity, and why that's so critical for our long-term future. So I am privileged to be a part of this journey. I'm privileged to be president of the board of the American Public Gardens Association at this time, because I can't really think of too many things that are more important right now than our IDEA work, because it's about the future. And the one message I have for you is, as you at your garden tackle this important work, don't make it painful, make it joyful. Because what we need to tell the world is that a more accepting, diverse, inclusive community is better than it was before. And so enjoy this journey, make your own world better, make your community better, and together we'll all make the world better.
If I can ask the panelists to unmute and reveal themselves to our many, many participants. Again, thank you for coming today. So I know I've bombarded your chat with a few resources during the course of the video. but also please do use the Q&A feature, and we'll field some of the questions that you have that you might want to know more about. And then others of us who are on the IDEA committee may even have some questions of our own that might be on participants' minds, so that if they're shy and don't want to be the first to ask questions, I think it's great for us to break the ice. So our intention today was to show you some of the different resources that we have, share them with you, but then also introduce you to some of the members of the IDEA committee who've helped to make all this work. So we have our first question from an anonymous attendee, and yes, you can ask questions and pose questions anonymously. If you don't want to be the identified first person, we can completely understand. And so our first question for all of us on the panel are, what are some of your favorite strategies to get your staff started on IDEA learning and action? Maylin, Charles, anyone?
I guess I could start with the very first question. You know, I think, as I had mentioned before, is about the listening skills. And I think that's probably one of the first things that we could do is really, we all have perceptions, and they're usually rather personal to ourselves, but really to understand the other person, you need to ask them, tell me who you are, or tell me how you're inspired. And I think that's probably a better spot to start. So when I'm speaking with my staff, I usually start with what sort of makes me tick, but at the same time, more importantly, what makes them tick? What gets them all juiced up and ready to go, and how to express themselves?
I can add to it as well. I think the most important thing that we should all do, all the staff members should do, is self-reflection and self-awareness. Just like Charles is saying, I think we really need to look inward before we, do work collectively, and also be open to constant learning. I don't want to use big words, but this work is really about humanity. We all need to be open-minded. I think we all need to take time to unpack our biases and prejudice that all of us have. And we really need to stretch ourselves and actively work on those biases and work intentionally. And that's how I think we can make some changes.
I'll add too that I think it's really important to have a shared dialogue, a shared set of words and principles to be able to talk through with your team. And so it probably starts with a shared experience, whether that's bringing in a facilitator or jumping on all together onto an available webinar, looking at the resources in your community, having some shared experience and something to really build on and to analyze together, I think is a really key step if you don't already have this expertise on your team, and if you're unable to hire the expertise into your team.
I will also add, sometimes it's good to also even ask, what is the team looking for, in the sense that begins the dialogue about what you do need. The need is going to change as we evolve, as our awareness of the team evolves, as our experiences together evolve. But there's just that starting point. What is challenging you?
Well, I could toss out, starting with a confession. I think I got a lot of it backwards when I was working on it over the last decade. In some ways not, but we started out with our board of trustees. We really wanted to diversify our board because we believed that without that backup of what we were doing, it could lead to a long-term problem. So we formed a board committee really early on, We have an extremely diverse board now. That wasn't done without some discomfort from time to time, but now that we're there, it is really a celebration. And we really involved just a handful of kind of director level staff. And what I think we've learned, especially from Yvonne, is that the more people get involved in this, the cooler things you can come up with, more creative, dynamic things that are specific to each department. And this summer, after lots of discussion, I started meeting with all the departments, the whole staffs of every department, and I asked them to come up with their own project, especially as it relates to staffing diversity. And just as an example, the research and conservation team, which is not a very diverse group anywhere, decided that they would do some real hard outreach to high school and college students and create stipended internships, so that instead of another kind of summer job or after school job, we could bring in more diverse interns into research and conservation, which has STEM implications and all kinds of other implications. But my point is that if you empower staff to come up with ideas and give them the resources they need to make them successful, that's how things expand.
This is Maylin, and there was a question, I think, early at the beginning that asked about starting the inquiry, but also representation in children's gardens, relationship to inclusion and diversity. And I think that that's such a interesting thing because in some sense, it's adults, we're the ones that are kind of creating these children gardens, yet children walk into these spaces and they don't have the same blinders that we have. And I think that that's a place to inquire with, right? And that's a place to observe children. But I also think that there are others out there that are really in that kind of space of education. So I think part of it is also, and I apologize, I don't have the answer specifically, but what I would say is, what organizations, education, right, schools that have been doing this for a while, certain special schools have been doing this, what is it that they're doing? What are the stories that they're telling, and what's the approach? And I think that's a great place to start. And then I think visiting a lot of different children's gardens and being able to just observe and listen to other children and parents and see what they're doing, and then looking at it in a perhaps different perspective, and sometimes asking, well, what's the story that we're not telling in this space?
I would just add to that, to Maylin's comment, is also look at the marketing materials. Make sure whatever you're putting out there is not just some cute little white kids, come and play with us, we want to be diverse. Make sure that you have a rainbow of kids that you want to invite, and so that people see themselves reflected and they feel welcome just by seeing a photo. I think programming also, it's hard to think about where do you start with programming, but just maybe look at some of the things that you're already doing and how can you connect with an event and just do something like small and start from there. I think it's really quite easy sometimes. We think that it may be more difficult than it is, but it's really as simple as just having maybe a sign in Spanish or in another language that just outside that says welcome, and that's where it kind of starts, and it starts to build.
And there's a infamous event that happened in my garden before I started here, which there was a group, a K through 12 tour, a young kids tour. And they walked into our palm house, and suddenly one of the kids who's been a little bit quiet started jumping in and saying, oh, I know that plant and I know that plant. And he had recently moved to our area from a more tropical area. And he knew all these plants. He knew the banana tree because it had been in his grandma's yard, and he had seen all these plants before. With kids, it's really a chance for us to do something that's a bit counterintuitive, I think, as institutions of expertise, which is to celebrate the experience and knowledge of individuals. with kids, getting them to be able to talk about their individual experiences and how they know and observe the world too is a really natural way. And a lot of these things we're talking about are the ways we signal to adults that this is a place to talk about diversity with children. With children, we just have to ask them about their diverse experience, and they're really happy to share those experiences, and we get really wonderful learning happening from that.
So I think there was a really wonderful question from Jill Gardner about what do you recommend as a first meaningful step when beginning a committee, and how you start to architect that focus in a positive way.
I think that there's a really important part of that statement, right? It was when an organization or anybody in there says, hey, we want to start this committee. I think that this is something that has to come from multiple voices and from everybody. So there has to be a complete and utter total agreement at every single level that all of them say, we want this committee, we want to start, we want to participate, versus it coming as an idea from a single voice or a single person. There has to be total engagement, I think, for something like this. And then I think that as far as, making it fun is, I think that there are moments where people have to be able to speak their truth and be wherever they are with something, but allowing that kind of freedom to be there, but also to sometimes that the joy really is in the growth and how you see things change, and being able to really celebrate when those things, recognize when those things happen versus glossing them over or just checking a box. So I think that it does include, really celebrating successes and people and stories, and I don't know, whatever, every aspect of it I think needs to be recognized. But I think that also in allowing people their different voices and experiences, that not all of them are necessarily painful. Some of them are actually quite humorous, right? Some of them, make you kind of wonder or think, but being in that space where you're really allowing for that open conversation, I think that actually is in itself a joyous act, right? So I think, we're all doing the best that we can in uncomfortable situations, but we have to kind of allow for the range of expression and emotions.
I will add to Malin. I think, like you rightly said, reaching out to the diverse communities and empowering our audience who have marginalized identities. So talking to people from different backgrounds, inviting inner city schools for field trips, learning their perspectives, learning their stories, and how we can serve them better. I think starting those conversations are very important. And somebody just talked about the welcome signs. So like, for example, at Tower Hill, we created a welcome signs in different languages that welcomes our visitors. So small things here and there. It's really important. I think our ability to understand the feeling of the community, I think that's the most critical thing.
This has been, I'm going to pop in, and I apologize, I'm functioning with a computer without visual capabilities. But something that I'm sort of, a trend I'm hearing in the discussion, and I think in the Q&A a little bit as well, is the, where do I start? It can feel, and again, I've heard a lot of take small steps, make little changes. A lot of this is about building habits. A lot of it is about practice. Malin was sort of speaking to holding space, and we don't just wake up one morning and suddenly learn how to do that. We have to practice it. For those people we're stuck at home with, it's a really good opportunity to practice space when you're in the same space all the time. But I also think being really specific. So, to say we want to welcome more diverse people, that, again, aspirationally is beautiful, but again, I think because it's so broad, it's difficult to focus and it's difficult to take action. So being, again, narrowing it down, drilling down, and it can be, the size of the community, the number of people matters less than being able to be specific and actually be authentic, I think, in whatever it is you're doing. So if you're reaching out to Latinx communities, again, changing signage and moving these directions makes a lot of sense for thinking about that specific community. So again, specificity and again, taking a lot of small actions helps to sort of build, I think, all of these habits together.
So do any of our other, I've been picking the list of questions as they've been coming up for the panelists so far, but do any of you as panelists have a list, have one of these questions that you'd like to respond to?
I suppose I could respond to, there was a question about the connection between gardens and social justice, and how social justice fits into gardens. And I really want to point to the existence of gardens as public institutions. And if we really want to serve the public and welcome the public, we have to acknowledge all of the ways that people can be oppressed and can be pushed away from our spaces. And as cultural institutions, we need to represent all cultures and really bring them in order to really fully serve the public and to address some of the issues that sometimes our own institutions have caused.
Anyone else want to take one of their favorites?
I'd love to highlight a couple of things I saw in a question from Anonymous, because it's something I've never thought of before. One of the great things about just beginning the journey is you have to get comfortable with each new phrase, new idea. You know, we started out with diversity and spent probably 6 months trying to define what that meant. And then what does inclusion mean? And equity was tricky. And appropriation, what is that? So just kind of going through that, but having an environment where it was safe for people to figure that out, and then to go, aha, okay, I get it. Aha, I get that. And once you do that on a number of occasions, when one of our staff wanted to meet with me and started talking about the colonial history of our plant collections globally, and also nativist language around plants and exotics and invasives, and how all that can play a mirror role to how we treat human beings, I had another aha moment. And so we've got our taxonomy group working on, with a whole group nationwide, on plant names and trying to determine what is the best way to move forward so that we can eliminate some of those negative elements, but also shine some light on the history of plant collecting around the world and colonization. The one I just saw was getting rid of the labels for men's and women's uniforms, and just have uniforms and have people pick out what they're comfortable with. Hadn't thought about that. It's a great idea. When you get into the swing of idea work, I think the exciting thing is you just have new revelations all the time, and it just makes you more open to more people and more thoughts and more progress.
That's awesome. Thank you, Brian. I think there's, we have time for a couple more questions, and I see amongst the open Q&A questions that there's a trend around board and what the boards at our gardens see and how to do some integrations there and some awareness of idea principles there. And then there's sort of a separate but similar thread about engaging staff. So with the group that we have represented here as panelists, maybe some of us can talk to one piece or another, and you don't necessarily have to be a member of a board or a member of a staff team to voice your opinion on it, but I think it's great for everybody to see how that weave works.
Can I jump in quick too, Casey, before we're going to run out of time? I just want to remind everybody once again, we have a new idea forum on the APGA website. All of these questions are so incredible. I hope if you do not get your question answered right now, you just immediately copy and paste it over, because the conversation will continue.
Yeah, because we have to leave at the hour, Tim, you stole my thunder, but yeah, definitely. We'll make sure that everybody's questions that they get answered on the forum, and that it's a great place to open dialogue, and we'll have many more of these. So, and we've shared some of the resources in chat, but all those resources can be found in that idea discussion group, discussion forum. So back to our quick board question, and then we'll wrap up.
I have a comment about that, right? When we talk about engagement of, staff or volunteers, boards, and trying to change some of the dynamics. And I think that this is that big barrier where I think everybody recognizes they want that change, but they're not exactly sure what is it that's either stopping that change from happening or being able to identify those that are outside our usual, bubbles. To participate or join. And I think sometimes, and this is where the idea work is really all encompassing, and I think we have to sometimes go back and start looking in the details of the policies that we're putting in place. What are the rules? Are we saying that board members have to contribute X amount of dollars? Who are you excluding by doing that? If you're saying that you're looking for somebody who has a certain particular skill, where are you looking for that skill? And are you limiting yourself? I think that instead of sometimes looking at like, oh, we want this, it's you got to see what are the barriers you're actually participating in that you're not aware of. I think that oftentimes, I think that's a place to start, but you also have to look at then if you're looking at, because all of the makeups of our volunteers and staff and boards are a little bit different. I think we have to figure out the context and then understanding if there are any barriers there we have to look at, whether that's age, especially when we look at volunteers. We typically have people that are retired. They're a certain block of time and they work in a certain realm, but oftentimes we're also catering to that by only volunteering in times that they're the only ones that are available, right? So what is it that the rules and the structures that we've put in place, if we can kind of loosen up those or really revisit them and change them, then you might actually be able to change some of those, that engagement and your success with other communities of individuals.
Hey, Lynn, you just made me think about just a very quick story. I've talked to lots and lots of gardens. Almost all gardens have a give or get for their board, and very few of them ever enforce it. So you get to the, oh, well, we have a give or get that's really aggressive and it's this or it's that. And I asked the follow up, well, how many people actually do that? And it's 60% or 40% or 70%, which means it's not a rule. It's a barrier that doesn't make any sense. And so we got rid of a give and get. And we believe that people bring value of all types to our gardens. And we have a really socioeconomically diverse board. Some that have given 7 figures, some that can give us $50. And that means you hear a lot of different experiences. Oh, look at her. Oh, she just stole the whole show. So that's a good point. I think the few gardens that have a tiny group of maybe family members that serve as the board, for any board that has a broader community, for any garden that has a broader community board, you can be really diverse.
So we're getting to the end of our allotted time together. What I would say, and following up on what Brian said, is I think that where an individual institution starts the idea process from can be from a whole bunch of different places. And so in some organizations, it's going to come more naturally as we'll call it a staff desire or from the staff level desire. And in some, it may come from the volunteers and they may bring it forward. And then in other organizations, it maybe starts off as something that the board desires. I don't think there's one recipe for the origin point for the journey, but I do think there's a good recipe for what you want that journey to look like when you're done, and really making sure that it's unified all the way through, that you have support at all levels, and that you're cultivating allies and joy along the way is probably the best way to do it. And I've been very fortunate in our journey with the American Public Gardens Association board and with our staff team and with all of you that service really comprises that. So when I think about the give or the ask, it's always your time, your talent, and your treasure, right? Those are the things, and actually the last is probably less important. So in many cases, because really what we value right now is all the input that this committee and its members are putting in, but then all of you just being here and learning more about our resources and using our resources. So a final question was, what does success look like for this committee? And I think you'd probably hear 13 different versions of what success looks like when you're talking to the individuals of what we each want to see. But you'd also see that common goal of just making sure that the work that we have, the resources that we have, this cafe and the other one that's coming on March the 2nd at 3 p.m. Eastern, mark your calendars. But then also that you use all the resources. So there's another question on resources, and I'll just close by saying, in the discussion forum, please join. We'll share all the answers to your unanswered questions in there and allow you to dialogue on those answers because we want to hear how you feel about it, but we'll also share those resources and our favorite resources that we've used and have. So with that, I definitely don't want to be the last person to talk. So Naylin or Yvonne or Sarah or Kevina, somebody who hasn't talked today, please take us home. And it's just been such a pleasure having you all today.
Lynn can finish, but I just wanted to jump in and say, when it comes to idea work, we have to also think about what we are offering to become a more diverse environment. Here at Desert Botanical Garden, I tend to tell them, let's see, what are we giving them? You want to diversify your staff, you want to diversify your board and your visitor base, but what are you going to do to retain that? If you have a diverse staff, what are you going to do to keep them there? You have to make sure your environment is inclusive, is accessible in every sense of the word. So you have to look at what you're giving as well as, receiving. It's a two-way street in working with IDEA.
So well said, Kevina. Thank you so much. And Casey and everyone here, Brian, Trey, Tim, Gitu, Charles, Yvonne, Todd, all of you, Benjamin, you guys are just fantastic and wonderful. I thank you for all your work and just being here and being present today for our members. Tremendous thanks to members who have joined. Thank you so much. And I think my closing statement would be this, is that we want to hear from you. So as mentioned, that we have this forum online in the community groups. Talk to us, tell us about what you want to hear more about. We will have these future cafes, and we want to make sure that we are addressing the topics that you want to hear most about, and bringing in perhaps experts or professionals or others that have experience to be able to share that. We also want to hear about just your needs overall. We have a ton of resources, so get out there and take a look at them, and we'll be sure to keep publishing them as well out in newsletters and in the forum. But have a fun, trek and adventure into all the resources we have. You could easily spend days and days getting lost in them. But if there's something that's missing, we need to know. We have our own blind spots, and we're continually learning. So with that, thank you all again for attending. Keep up the good work and the amazing capacities that you all have for making a difference and making the changes that we really want to experience in our lives. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for joining.
Thank you, everyone.